Alcatraz, the Rock, a fortress of iron and stone surrounded by icy waters and swirling currents. For decades, it held America's most dangerous men and promised one thing: no one escapes. But on the night of June 11th, 1962, something extraordinary happened. 3 inmates vanished. And over 60 years later, the world still asks, did they make it out alive? This is the true story of the escape from Alcatraz and the mystery that still haunts the FBI. Meet Frank Morris, brilliant, quiet, and calculating. An orphan turned thief, he had an IQ of 133, genius level. Alongside him, brothers John and Clarence Anglin, bank robbers from Georgia with a bond thicker than concrete. The plan began months before the escape. Using spoons stolen from the cafeteria, they chipped away at the air vents in their cells, a little each night, hiding the debris in homemade false walls. Slow, precise, invisible to the guards. They crafted lifelike dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and real hair collected from the barber shop. On the night of the escape, those heads would lie on the pillows, fooling the guards doing night checks. They crawled through the holes, up into an unused service corridor. From there, they reached the roof, then climbed down a vent pipe to the ground. With a homemade raft stitched together from 50 rubber raincoats, they launched into the icy San Francisco Bay. No lights, no noise, just the sound of waves and the hope of freedom. By morning, Alcatraz was in panic. The guards found the dummy heads, the holes in the wall, the missing men. A manhunt began instantly. Helicopters, patrol boats, planes. The FBI declared they must have drowned. The currents were too strong, the water too cold, and yet, no bodies were ever found. But years later, strange things surfaced. Christmas cards sent to their mother, a man in Brazil who looked like Clarence, and in 2013, a letter arrived. My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night. I'm 83 now and in bad shape. I'm telling the truth. The FBI tested the letter for fingerprints and DNA. Inconclusive. The mystery only grew deeper. Did they make it? Or did the sea claim their bodies in silence? One thing is certain. It was the greatest prison break in American history, and the ending remains unwritten. Life on Alcatraz was grim. Cells were barely 5 feet wide. Showers had hot water, not for comfort, but to keep prisoners from adapting to the cold bay waters. Every detail was designed to kill hope. Frank Morris was no ordinary inmate. He had escaped from multiple prisons before. Smart, disciplined, and fiercely private, he became the mastermind behind the plan. John and Clarence Anglin were raised in Florida. Strong swimmers, used to diving in cold rivers, their family later claimed they received secret messages proving they survived. Authorities searched Angel Island, nearby beaches, and even drained parts of the bay. Nothing. Not a shoe. Not a body. A few days later, a paddle and parts of a makeshift raft were discovered, but they didn't prove anything. Over the years, many theories emerged. Some believe they drowned within minutes. Others say they made it to land and lived in secret for decades. A man named Fred Brizzi, an old friend of the Anglins, claimed he met them in Brazil. He showed a photo. Experts say it's a 90% match. In 2010, the Anglin family found a hidden message inside a picture frame. It read, "We are safe." In 1979, the FBI closed the case. But the U.S. Marshals kept it open. They still chase leads to this day. June 11th, 1962, 8 p.m., lights out, guards patrol, silence. Behind the silence, the escape begins. One by one, they remove the grates and crawl into darkness. They descend a vent pipe, 50 feet down, into the unknown. 11:30 p.m. They reach the shore. They launch the raft. Then, they're gone. 6:30 a.m. Alcatraz wakes to the unthinkable. Guards try to rouse the inmates, but the men in the beds aren't real. Panic sets in. The manhunt is massive. Dozens of agents flood the Bay Area, but days pass. No bodies, no arrests, just silence. They were smart, smarter than we thought. If they died, the ocean hid it well. If they lived, well, then we were outplayed. Some believe a boat was waiting for them. Others think they reached Angel Island, changed clothes, and split up. All speculation. No proof. 3 men, 1 plan, 0 confirmations. The escape from Alcatraz is not just a prison break. It's a myth in motion. The escape inspired movies, books, and endless speculation. Clint Eastwood portrayed Frank Morris in the 1979 film Escape from Alcatraz, bringing the legend to a global audience. Hollywood dramatized the story, but the core remained true. Every detail, every piece of evidence led back to one possibility. Maybe they made it. Experts say the psychology of these men mattered. Intelligent, patient, and desperate. The perfect formula for the unthinkable. Of the 36 men who attempted to escape Alcatraz, 23 were caught, 6 were shot, 2 drowned, and 3 were never seen again. In 2014, Dutch scientists simulated the tides of that night. Their conclusion? If the men launched between 11 p.m. and midnight, they could have made it to shore. The data matched the Anglin's swimming ability and raft speed. The theory of survival grew stronger. They always said they'd come back one day, maybe not to visit, but just to show they made it. The rock still stands, empty, cold, and echoing with questions. But some stories refuse to die. Sometimes the greatest escape is never being found. Freedom. For some, it's an idea. For others, a choice worth risking everything. They didn't just escape a prison. They escaped a system. They faced impossible odds. But maybe the human spirit doesn't care about odds. Every year, thousands visit Alcatraz. But most don't know that the real story isn't about a place. It's about the will to break through walls, real or imagined. Where others saw a prison, they saw a map. And maybe that's the lesson, that with enough time, enough patience, and enough belief, any wall can fall. Legends aren't born, they break free. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more true mysteries, forgotten legends, and impossible escapes. This was more than a prison break. It was history, rewritten by those who refused to be forgotten. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison. It was a message, a symbol, built not only to contain the body, but to crush the spirit. There were no second chances, no hope of parole, no light at the end of the tunnel. The isolation was intentional. The rules were strict. Talking in the mess hall was forbidden. Inmates stared at the same 4 walls every day, surrounded by guards trained to detect even the smallest deviation. But Frank Morris wasn't like most inmates. He wasn't violent. He didn't talk much. But he watched. He studied. He waited. To escape from Alcatraz, you didn't just need tools. You needed time. You needed nerves of steel. And you needed to believe, truly believe, that freedom was possible. The Anglin brothers were equally patient. Raised on farms, they were used to hard work, cold rivers, and quiet discipline. They knew how to survive without being seen. Many people underestimate what desperation can do to the human mind. When there's nothing left to lose, every risk becomes rational. Every second becomes fuel for the fire inside. What's fascinating is how precise the plan was. They used real measurements, calculated guard rotations, and tracked tide charts. They waited for the summer months when the water was cold, but not fatal. They weren't reckless. They were methodical. And that's what makes the escape so haunting. It wasn't a leap of faith. It was a calculated masterpiece. In the decades that followed, investigators have revisited every detail. Coast Guard logs, weather reports, oceanic simulations. But none have produced a definitive answer. Tourists who visit Alcatraz today often stop at cell block B, staring into the empty bunks where the heads once lay. Guides tell the story like legend, but no one truly knows how it ended. The U.S. Marshals say the case remains open. Technically, all 3 men are still fugitives, and until bodies are found or conclusive proof emerges, the door remains cracked open. Some believe they changed their names, started new lives in South America, and lived quietly under the radar. Others say the cold night took them, but spared the evidence. The power of this story lies in its silence, its absence of closure, its refusal to settle. It reflects something deep in all of us, the dream of escape, of freedom against the odds. That's why the story still resonates today. It's not just about 3 men and a prison. It's about possibility, about the will to resist fate, about rewriting your ending when the world tells you it's already written. And maybe that's the most powerful part of the Alcatraz escape. That somewhere, out there, 3 ghosts walked away from a cage made of steel and salt water and never looked back. Maybe they reached the shore, drenched and shivering, but alive. Maybe they stared back at the island one last time, knowing they had done what no one thought was possible. And maybe they didn't care if the world believed them, because survival was enough. After all, legends don't need proof, they need courage. And that, they had. But what if they were found today? Imagine the headlines. Alcatraz, escapees, discovered, alive, after 60 years. News crews would flood the streets, documentaries, interviews, confessionals, a Netflix series in weeks. But maybe they wouldn't say a word. Maybe they'd simply nod, smile, and disappear again. Because for them, the story ended that night, not with glory, but with peace. And yet, their legacy never stopped moving. In classrooms, escape rooms, and even video games, their ingenuity is studied and celebrated. They've become icons, not of crime, but of possibility. Every decade, new theories emerge. Facial recognition technology, AI-enhanced photos, digital forensics. But the mystery always stays just one step ahead, like a shadow no spotlight can catch. And that's the strange power of unresolved stories. They live longer. They breathe through speculation, passed from voice to voice, generation to generation. We are drawn to them, because in the end, this escape reminds us that even in the darkest systems, some still find a way out. That the human spirit, pushed far enough, can do the impossible, not for revenge or riches, but for the simple, primal idea of freedom. What Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers did may never be fully proven. But the impact? That's already written in the walls of Alcatraz and in the imagination of everyone who's ever dreamed of breaking free. And maybe that's the truest escape of all, to become a legend no prison can hold. Subscribe for more historical mysteries. Like and share if you love history.